Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shadow Valley. My name is Brennan.
This is Gabe. All right, guys, today we've got a short episode for you, but we still wanted to push something out. Brennan and I are working on a kind of a larger project here. So we didn't want to take too much time off, but we still wanted to obviously do an episode. So today we're going to dive into a pretty chilling, spooky subject. As many people know, obviously we've been talking about a lot of, what's the word? I just forgot it. Why did I just forget the word?
We've just kind of been like referencing it a lot.
So we're going to talk about the Wendigo, but cryptid. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So we've been talking about a lot of cryptids. It is a cryptid, right?
I think it counts as a cryptid. I mean, it falls into kind of like when we were looking at like researching it, it falls into the like cryptid or like demon kind of category.
Right. Okay. So it is, well, we're pretty positive it is a cryptid. But brace yourselves because this kind of stuff just kind of sends a little chill down my spine, if you will. Just freaky, you know, all this. And Brennan obviously can go into some more stories or details, but
yeah, no, I am. The Wendigo scares me absolutely to death. Like the first time I heard about it was just that episode of Lost Tapes of the Wendigo. And ever since I saw that, it just made me so scared because of the image of what a Wendigo traditionally like looks like.
Yeah.
Fucking scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's spooky, dude. So a lot of obviously this, and with many cryptids or just kind of these kind of stories, they do come from like Native American tribes. I can't remember the top of my head what tribe it came from, but generally the Wendigo is, they say it once was a human who then turned into cannibalism. A lot of the time they say it was because of like a harsh winter or a lot of like famine, where they needed to obviously eat somebody, which was considered a very vile act, which then transformed them into this very unstable, freaky creature. And I would assume many people have heard about this just because it seems like the Wendigo is I think probably one of the top cryptids in my opinion. I would say it'd probably go Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Who would be next? I don't even know.
The Loch Ness Monster is pretty big, pretty known.
The Loch Ness Monster?
You think so?
Really? I guess maybe more back in the day, but now? You think?
Fair enough. I haven't heard as many stories or
I seldom
about
hear
it.
about Loch Ness Monster.
Definitely Bigfoot. You don't really hear much about werewolves either, I was about to say.
That's true. A lot of those things I feel like maybe when I was younger, I probably heard more about.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like we haven't I haven't dived in too far into a lot of this cryptid stuff as of now. I mean, I've touched. I feel like I've barely scraped the surface, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, Chupacabra. That's always a big
yes, one. Chupacabra. That's a good one. Chupacabra, and then
you always hear on the news.
Skinwalkers, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you know what? I might even put Skinwalker over Chupacabra.
You think so?
Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, I'd probably go Bigfoot, Skinwalker,
yeah,
Chupacabra, and then Wendigo.
Yeah.
Mind you, though, a lot of like the Wendigo and Bigfoot and Skinwalker, I think are probably more due to where we're located.
Right.
Just because we're in the West. So that's probably more why we hear it here, but I'm sure other places probably hear different ones. Yeah, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one out of all of those that still scares me the most is the Wendigo. Mm-hmm. Even though, like here where we live, like there's no Wendigos. Like that's just not a thing.
Yeah,
those are all for like the more northern states and Canada. Mm-hmm. But here we have skinwalkers, and that's what I should really be afraid of.
Yeah.
And I can talk a little bit about that some other time.
Well,
but
yeah, we did that. We did our episodes, sort of, I guess, just on skinwalkers, a brief touch base on that. Maybe we should
Right.
do an episode on that. That'd be sweet.
I think it'd be cool. Because I kind of sort of have like an experience, I guess, with one, but also we'll leave it as like an asterisk next to that because I don't want to confirm. But anyway, the Wendigo still scares me the most because I don't know. It just sounds the scariest. I think maybe the cannibalism does that, or
Yes,
I don't know.
definitely. I think so. And then another thing I just remembered, very common throughout is, and it's almost like the Skinwalker as well. A lot of people don't like to say its name
Right.
because it's very taboo. It's like you don't want to get its attention almost.
Exactly.
So from here on out, I'm going to refer to it as the Thing. No, the W.
The W.
Yeah, the W.
I'll just still call it the Wendigo.
Dude,
I'm just kidding. Well, no. No,
that was kind of spooky.
I wish there was like a name, kind of like
Yeah.
last time with the Black Eyed Kids, the Becks.
The Becks.
I wish like the Wendigo had something like that, but
The Weenie.
yeah, I'm not good with nicknames.
The
Good old deer skull, antlers. I don't know.
no, that's so. I just like envision it in my head. Oh, I hate that.
yeah.
I hate that so much.
Hey, I live in like the middle of a city, so I'm not too scared of it. I'll call it the Wendigo. You can call it the W.
I'm gonna call it the Wig. There we go.
The Wig.
The Wig.
And I know it's pronounced like two different ways. You can call it like the Wendigo or the Wendigo. I'm not sure which one's right.
I'm not sure either.
So for all intents and purposes, for me, it's just going to be the Wendigo.
Okay, that sounds good.
But just wanted to acknowledge that just in
Yeah, yeah.
case.
I'm gonna call it the Wig.
Just in case old Sticky Keys gets
Oh,
angry
sticky
at me.
keys.
Anyways.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't have like too much to say on the topic. Obviously, like we said prior to, we did minimal research here because we wanted to just keep it short and sweet for you guys. So Brendan's going to share a story here in a minute. This episode, like we said, probably is not going to be super long. Just a quick one for you guys. But yeah, maybe we should go into what the Wig kind of looks like.
For sure.
If you want to, do you want to start describing it?
Yeah, I could give kind of a general description. And so the Wendigo kind of takes it has a very human shape. It's a humanoid kind of creature. But some of the like defining characteristics are the fact that it has extremely long claws
Yes.
for its hands, in which are actually made to be able to tear people open. It's almost like, think about it like as carving knives, because you want to exactly just have, like if you're going to gut somebody and you want to use get some meat,
Yeah.
then you're going to need like some good carving knives. And so it can quickly just cut through flesh, and it
Sounds
can
like
eat very quickly.
What's that guy? Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah, except for not nice.
Not nice. Doesn't just cut your hair for fun.
Exactly. And so, yeah, that's like one of the big things, because one of the defining characteristics too is the Wendigo is always hungry. It'll
Right.
talk to you, and this is so scary. It'll talk to you about how it's always starving and how it's always cold.
Right.
'Cause-
And it always mimics like a human voice.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can exactly like it can pretend to be somebody like even though it like already killed them and devoured them.
Right.
Or even if that person's still alive, it'll still use their voice and kind of call out to you. But I guess some other characteristics are typically that deer skull that it's talked about
Right.
wearing, to where it kind of that's its head. It has like that cervid skull,
Right.
extremely long, sharp teeth as well. Because again, it's not meant for necessarily grinding. It's just like wolves; they have sharp teeth
It's
because
just to rip
it's
apart.
to tear. Exactly.
Yep.
And then it has the antlers on the deer skull as well.
Yep.
And so it's this humanoid shape, extremely, extremely tall, strong, razor sharp nails, and this deer skull head that's going
It's
on.
terrifying.
It's insane. And then the fact that it can mimic voices and can even like trick you into going after like saving somebody. It will
Right.
mess with your head. It's insane how the Wendigo works. And I think that's part of the reason why it terrifies me. I mean, I know the Skinwalker can also mimic voices, but just the shape of the Wendigo and just the way it is, it's always terrified me.
Right. Yeah. And it is spooky, man. Just like, if you guys haven't looked at a picture of the wig, or I don't know, just like kind of try to envision this in your head, it's spooky, man. Once you start like reading into people's stories and looking at pictures of what people like have come up with or depict the wig to be, it's spooky, man. A lot of these people that make the photos or always draw them as like very skinny, just kind of look like just malnourished, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then like the flesh all over their body is just kind of, it's like falling. Oh, it's just so disgusting and freaky.
It is.
And then glowing eyes, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
they do have those glowing eyes, and they're piercing. They're described as like piercing. Like people feel like it can see through them.
Yeah.
Or like even when they're hiding it, they always feel like it can see them. It knows where they are.
Right. And I think when I was doing my research, I saw a lot of like people when they would say, at least what I like interpreted it as, is like, it sounds stupid, but did you ever watch like Ghost Rider?
Yeah, I did.
You remember when he like, or his like power to like look into my eyes and I'm going to show you like the pain of everybody that you've like caused it onto.
Yeah.
Just like burns into his eyes, you know? That's what I imagine that to be like those that are so unfortunate to cross by the wig is like, and they see those eyes.
Yeah.
It just kind of, if they live, I guess.
Right.
It just, leaves them scarred for the rest of their lives.
Well, you want to know something even crazier?
Let's hear it.
So with the Wendigo, it is known that at times they will collect their victims, take them back to their residence, we'll call it that, and they'll leave them alive, but over time slowly take chunks off of them until they do die. Almost like they're storing food for winter. So they'll have like a human
like
storage.
What's that word? Hibernating?
Yeah. Except for I don't think they hibernate. I just think they're constantly hungry and they're
just
constantly
trying to kill
eating,
everybody.
But like, yeah, sometimes they will like stockpile humans and they're all alive. But they'll do things because they're smart. They'll do things like cutting the Achilles tendons, cutting like the ACL and LCL in your knees because
like
they want
torture.
you. Yeah, but it's just to make it because now you're their dinner and they don't want you to go away.
Right.
They're going to make you so you can't move. They're going to make you immobile and it's going to hurt like hell, but it's very effective. Like now you can't walk. Your Achilles tendon's gone. Your ACL and LCL gone. Just torn the hell up.
It kind of sounds like, and this might be wrong, but because I'm not 100% sure on this detail, but it almost sounds like the wig, if it does hurt you, it almost gets like I don't know how to explain it. Like have you heard the tales of like vampires if they scare their prey?
Yeah.
You know, if their like blood tastes better to the vampire or whatever.
Right.
So like maybe for the wig, it's like when your prey is hurt,
Right.
feeling pain or anything like that, like it tastes better to the wig.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying because there are a lot of chemicals that go out in the body when we are injured or hurt or when we're scared in those fight or flight things.
Like the adrenaline rush and stuff.
Exactly.
Like maybe that tastes better to the wig.
A lot of cortisol as well. I don't know how well that tastes, but
just Google, does cortisol taste good? And then the FBI shows up and they're like, why are you Googling that?
consensual cannibalism. Just kidding.
Consensual. Hey, they consented. It's okay. It's not
I
a
think
big
it
deal.
is legal though. I think consent.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, I think it's like legal in some states. I'm going to do a quick Google search here.
Okay. I guess going forward, like, yeah, when they take those tendons and stuff, I'm assuming they're eating them. Maybe it's like a pre-snack, like their daily fruit roll-up. Or their fruit by the foot.
That's so gross.
And they just sit there afterwards licking their fingers.
Weird.
I don't know.
Okay, so apparently, according to this very quick Google search, the United States currently has no laws against cannibalism per se.
Huh.
But most, if not all, states have enacted laws that indirectly make it impossible.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's some black market shit then.
Yeah, Here we go. This is a this is a nice Reddit post.
Okay.
It says, "Is consensual cannibalism illegal?"
Nice.
Oh, dang it!
Well,
It's been deleted.
There's a lot of like vor, like people like vor out there, which is sus.
Vor? What's
Yeah.
vor?
It's kind of like that same thing, like eating people. Like some people who really enjoy being like eaten, and people who like to eat other people. I don't know about this. I think the only reason I know about this is from a mutual friend that we share. I'm not going to put any names out there just because, that's disrespectful. And they didn't say they were into it. It was just something as like a joke. They were like, yo, you know what vor is? And I was like, the fuck is vor? And they're like, look it up. And so I looked it up, and I believe that's what it was. So, can't say I'm into vor. I actually find it extremely disgusting, but it's kind of like being sexually aroused from eating somebody and like being eaten.
Ooh, that is interesting. I just also Googled it.
Is that what it is?
Yes. Yeah, you get sexual pleasure from being eaten / watching somebody like eat you. Just, hey, no king shaming. If any of our listeners are down with that, by all means be down with it. But personally, I'm not down with the sickness.
No, I'm gonna take a hard pass on that one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess just going back to the Wendigo.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
That's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Almost 20 minutes in, we're like veering off into some sexual kinks. Oh man,
Maybe that's a future episode, just covering some of the strangest kinks out there.
Just all the strange kinks.
Yeah, that'd be fucking insane. In all honesty, like just doing an episode all about kinks. Like, oh yeah, somebody's into vor. Oh, somebody likes their mommy to tie them up and like spank them all the time and then suck their dick. Like,
what the frick kind of?
I don't know. They also have like child play, which drives me absolutely insane. Just because I can't. Where they're like
what do you mean child's play? Like where you dress as like a child?
Yeah, where you dress as a child and you act like a child and you sit there and you're like, oh my God, Daddy, I've been such a bad little girl.
Oh yeah, that's weird.
Oh, and they like dress in diapers and shit.
What the hell?
You know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never heard of that.
I guess I've just seen like the sickness of the world, bro. And I just know a lot of shit that I wish I didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't know about that. That's kind of wild.
But yeah, kinks could be something in the future, I guess. No, I don't want to get anybody rock hard on the podcast.
Okay. Oh, so I just thought of a question actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the answer, but is the wig kind of like a I hesitate to say this, but is it kind of like a protector, if you will, for like nature in the forest?
No.
So how does it? So it comes to fruition because of something evil or not evil, but something so foul, I guess, like cannibalism, has been performed. So, because I know that I've seen when I was doing research, I saw stories of like, for instance, like that hunter,
Right.
that like wasn't following rules, just gave like no shits about anything, and it was said that the wig was sent out to take care of this hunter.
Like somebody intentionally created a Wendigo to do this, or what?
See, and it was just like I just briefly read over it, but I thought it was like the forest sent this wig out to take care of this hunter because they were not like properly doing anything. Right.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe it's not, but that was probably like one of the only stories that I read that were like that. However, I'm sure I could probably find some more. I'm
going to level like with talking about the Wendigo and how they're always hungry and they say they're so cold, so always in this constant like freezing state. So the fact that starvation is one of the most painful feelings you can feel. Mm-hmm. So starvation plus always being frozen solid. Yeah. If nature intentionally made a guy do that, nature's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
Like no joke. Like, not
Yeah, I
gonna,
agree.
That's the first thing that came into my mind. Like, okay, nature intentionally made this other person suffer to go attack this one hunter that was disrespecting it. Like, two people just got ultimately shafted by nature.
Well,
Nature just spread those cheeks and like penetrated them. Just absolutely shafted.
So maybe I should have explained myself a little better. So it wasn't that there was like nature intentionally made a wig.
Yeah. Almost got you.
Yeah, I know. But it like because these creatures are in the forest or wherever they like to take rest, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
where they live, that the forest called upon that creature to take care of this person, as if it were like, what if it wasn't a wig, or if it was like a Bigfoot, for instance. You know how we talked about like maybe Bigfoot is sent out to protect the forest or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe the wig at this point was like the closest. I don't know how to explain it. Like and I could be totally wrong. I'm just trying to surmise some sort of like idea from this very brief story I read. So obviously I'm probably butchering it, and I'm sorry for anybody that knows this story.
Yeah.
I probably should have read it for a little bit more.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I shouldn't have asked like extra questions then.
No, it's okay. It is okay because I also didn't do much research on that one. So
that's fine. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and there was a few stories I read about the Wendigo, and it was interesting. A lot of it kind of followed the same track, but there was one story that I thought was really interesting, and there's a common theme in a lot of these. Was they tend to happen to hunters, and a lot of hunters are the ones who spend the most time in the woods, so it kind of makes sense. So the people who spend a lot of times in the woods are going to have the most stories.
right.
Of course, there's going to be other people like hermits who probably stay in the woods, but you know, if you're a
Or
hermit,
just like off-grid people or something.
yeah, why are you going to talk to somebody if you're trying to stay off grid? So
Right.
not as many stories, and a lot of them are written off as like bear attacks. But I guess going on, here's kind of like the story.
Oh yeah, here we go.
There was this guy. He was out hunting with his buddy in the woods. They were actually elk hunting. They were looking specifically for elk. And the first night, they heard something walking around their camp, and they shone their flashlights out there, and they didn't necessarily see anything. But that's also kind of a characteristic of the Wendigo, because it moves extremely quickly and it's able to hide. I mean, especially if something so, I guess, like evil and is a hunter, it has to know how to hide.
Right.
But I guess continuing with the story, this thing was walking around their camp. They heard it, but they couldn't see anything. And so they had to just chalk it up to, you know, maybe there's an animal further out, or maybe it's just the forest.
Right.
And
yeah, I mean, as you would like to convince yourself, you know, especially like, for instance, when I'm out camping or anything and I'm sitting in my tent, it's late at night, and then I start hearing like crunching, you know, anything like that kind of sets me off a little bit, you know, because you want to be able to convince yourself. And I think we talk about this quite often in each of our episodes so far, but I think every person just has a natural tendency to want to convince themselves that this kind of like surreal, freaky idea doesn't exist, you know. And I'm not cut from that either, you know, because I do it as well. When I'm sitting there, like I was explaining, I'll hear this crunch. I'm like, oh, it's probably just the wind. Or it's probably some little like chipmunk, squirrel, or whatever. You know, when in reality, it could be something terrifying. Something terrifying that's just watching me that I don't know about, you know, because for whatever reason, I've done something to call its attention. You know, it's just freaky. It's freaky stuff like that you don't want to think about. You don't want to like, just like nobody wants to really think about. Well, I guess, again, some people might, but not many people that I know would probably want to think about the world ending or their loved ones dying or anything like that, right? So you try to avoid it. You try to think of other things. You try to push it away or convince yourself otherwise of something else.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing with all these stories. And I think that's why it's so easy for people to just write this off as like, oh, it's just a forest.
Yeah.
We heard a bunch of noises outside. Let me shine my flashlight. Oh, nothing? That's probably not. There's probably nothing. Just a forest. Let's
Right.
not worry about it.
Well, when you start to buy into these things and you want to acknowledge them that they're actually out there and things like this can happen,
Right.
you know, at that point, you're admitting that you're not in control. You're no longer the apex predator out there. We're not top dog.
Right.
There are things out there that are bigger than us, much more skilled than us, and we necessarily can't defend ourselves from that. We become the deer, and they become the predator. It's like you're almost staring down the barrel of a shotgun, and you can't do anything to stop it.
Especially if you were to acknowledge it. You know, if you're
yeah.
you're sitting there, let's say you're in this scenario again, like you're in a tent.
Yeah.
You start hearing this crunching, cracking, whatever you want to hear outside, and you acknowledge it and you say, you know what? Let's just say that's probably a wig.
Right.
I'm going to go outside, acknowledge its existence.
Right.
You've essentially written yourself a sentence to death, right?
Right.
Because you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, well, you know what? It's real. I'm just going to accept it.
Yeah.
And if this is when I go, this is when I go. You know, like that's
Yeah.
terrifying to think about. And that I think is exactly like why everybody wants to just avoid it. Because if, let's say for an instant, it is legit, it is real, then
Yeah.
again, dude, I don't know what I would do. I
Right.
don't know what I would do if there's some evidence, concrete evidence. Speaking of evidence, sorry, not to get too sidetracked.
Okay.
I'm sure many people, because this has been a pretty hot topic
Yeah.
of the confessions made by certain individuals, pretty much guaranteeing alien life
Yeah.
and saying that aliens are on Earth. The U.S. has aliens in their possession.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy, if you ask me. But
It's insane.
I digress.
I mean, but no, it makes sense because at that point we are admitting that, hey, they're these beings who had technology to travel the universe or across space, or, you know, there's the
Space, time,
dimension
whatever.
theory. And the fact that they were able to do that shows they are light years ahead of us
They
in technology.
are the apex.
And we are so it's a miracle they're here because we're so insignificant and we haven't even developed technology enough to catch up to them.
Right.
Like, we're so far behind. We are literally their bitch.
Yeah.
Like, they can do whatever they want with us at that point. And
Yep.
to acknowledge aliens, or to even have global governments acknowledge aliens, that's them saying we're not in control. They don't have control. There's no guarantee for our safety at this point. We have to submit to kind of their
Whatever's going to
discretion.
happen. Yep.
Exactly.
It's up to them to decide our fates at this point, you know. But
Yeah.
yes, we digress. Let's get back on topic.
Of course.
I guess it's still kind of on topic, but just to kind of reiterate, we want to convince ourselves that these things are no effect to us.
Right.
So let's get back into this. We're in the cabin.
Okay.
2 hunters.
Oh, they're not even in a cabin. They're just in the woods.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were in a cabin. So they're in the woods.
No, they would have wished they were in a cabin. So they're just in the woods. They have their tents, and they heard this kind of sound going around the camp, almost like something walking around. Later on, one of the guys goes on to talk about how he feels as though they were being watched, how they were being hunted. Like, they were the prey in this point, and they just didn't know where their predator was. And I guess continuing on that, like, a little later on in the night, they also started hearing different animal sounds. But they weren't necessarily normal. I mean, as these hunters, they were experienced enough to where they knew about certain sounds and what animals
Right.
should look like.
They could probably make out it like a,
Right.
oh, that was like a deer. Oh, that was like some rabbit squealing or a coyote, whatever.
Right. And they were listening and they could identify like the animal, but it sounded off, as if it was something trying to mimic the animal that was making the sound, or what that would normally make that sound, but they couldn't do it perfectly right. And so they noted that, brush it off as weird, as we say we all do.
Yeah.
But as the hunting trip went on, they were able to get some elk, and they ended up taking them back to their campsite. This was a week-long trip, and things quickly went south on day 3.
Okay.
That's when things started going crazy. So they brought these elk back to their camp. They had like two two big ones. I don't know the exact size. I'm not too familiar with that. And I didn't note that.
Yeah.
I didn't find it super significant, but they brought these large elk back to their campsite, and they ended up leaving their campsite. So this was midday. They brought it back. Then they leave the campsite to go back and hunt some more. I don't know what their license were or what their tags were, but later on in the evening, when they get back to their campsite, they notice that the deer or the elk are gone, but what remained was their head. And with their head, there was this hole that was cut in the back, almost like you could fit over it, like in your mouth, as if you could reach in with your tongue and just suck it all out. And so, like, all the brains and the insides there.
Like
and
a crawfish.
Yeah. And they just left the skull there. And it was one deer skull, and it was facing
Elk skull,
their
right?
tent. Like, the skull of this elk.
Elk, okay.
Yeah. Was facing their tent, which, you know, sounds spooky to me, but it might just be insignificant.
So, okay, so the elk, like the eyes were facing the tent or the back of the head?
The eyes.
Why?
And, you know, it was interesting too, because they mentioned like the eyes were still in the sockets. And so imagine, and I'm trying to paint the image because I'm not being as descriptive. If I had next time I'll have to print out the story and read it word for word. But the animal peeled off all the flesh of the face. So it was literally just a skull of an elk.
And the eyeballs?
But left the eyes in the sockets. Everything else was gone and just sucked out the back, as if you could just put it over your face like almost a bowl, like
Or
a bowl
like
of
a
cereal.
mask.
Exactly. And it was just left there, both of the eyes in, just facing their tent, which take that as you will. You know, to me, that would be a lot scarier at night. Like if I woke up and I saw that. But they were just...
Dude, can you imagine?
That
You
would-
like get up to use the bathroom and then you see that just next to your tent?
Yeah.
That would be terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And was there blood?
No.
No,
There
blood.
wasn't. That was something they did mention. It was completely clean because their first thing was like, okay, we had some bears or some other scavengers come in
Yeah.
and just kind of take it apart, and we didn't like put it away good. I don't know how you protect that and how you keep the kill, but they didn't do it right. And so these animals,
And for it to be like a bear or anything, there would definitely be blood. There'd
Right.
probably be remains everywhere because
Yeah.
the bear's not going to eat everything. And why would they leave the skull with just the eyes? That's terrifying.
I've never heard of a bear like peeling the face off.
Yeah, and like that's spooky. I think I could see it like if there were crows involved or something. Like, you know,
Yeah.
or not crows. What are those ugly? What are those ugly birds? Frick.
I know exactly what you're talking about. They fly.
Yeah, they fly. They like.
I mean, all birds kind of fly. Vultures,
vultures. Yeah,
Yeah.
If it was like a vulture or something, you know,
or maybe
they,
like a hawk.
or a hawk, something that just like is a more of like a carnivore that will pick at the flesh.
Yeah.
You know? Because if they pick at the flesh, then I could totally see how there could be like just a skull. You know?
Yeah.
But then that doesn't leave the eye. Like that doesn't explain the eyes.
Right.
know?
You think
That's
they would
just
take those with
Yeah.
them.
Right, yeah.
But and then also like the back of the head, like the brain being gone.
Right. Like it just sucked it out with a freaking like a straw or something. Just,
Right. And I just don't know. I could imagine, you know, giving credit to maybe like it actually being a Wendigo, like they said.
yeah.
That deer skull would allow them to stick that face in deeper, and they wouldn't
Right.
necessarily need to cover like we do, where we would need a bigger hole to even go in there. But kind of how cervids kind of get, you know, smaller
Right,
towards the end
right.
of their face, it'd be easy for that to just slide in there and just eat it out.
Yeah. Ugh.
And so they get back, they see this deer skull and just completely like emptied. And they note it and they find it extremely strange, and they can't necessarily explain it, but they're not leaving just yet.
Right. Because this is day 3 of a 5-day.
Right. No, this is 7 days. This is an entire week.
Oh shoot!
And
Okay,
they're
so we're
only day
3
3.
days into a 7-day trip, so we still have
Right.
about pretty much 4 days left.
Right. That was the plan,
Yeah.
to just kind of stay out there for, you know, the entire 7 days. And so day 3, things like escalated a lot. And what ended up starting to happen after that is the noises intensified. Like instead of just happening at night, that same day, that evening, they heard the same type of animal noises and they couldn't explain it. They actually took their guns and they went out in the forest trying to find something and they couldn't. But yet they heard the animal sounds. And, you know, to add something even more scary, as they were out there, they heard different animal sounds and some of them sounded so close, like maybe 10 yards out.
And they can't see them.
They can't see it. They can't identify where it's coming from. And it would jump from the left side to the right side. It would sound like it's coming right in front, coming right in the back. And so you just hear these noises all around you, like as if you're surrounded by rabbits or you're surrounded by
some animal, whatever.
Exactly.
It is,
And you can't see it. You can't identify it at all.
So terrifying.
You basically just have to try and figure it out. Like you have no idea where it's coming from. And
especially when it's just you and your pal. You know?
Exactly.
If there were like multiple people, you could have a much wider range to search and be like, okay, what's going on? Like what is making this noise?
Exactly.
But it's just two dudes.
Exactly. And they just had their rifles and, you know, you feel pretty safe behind a rifle because you know, okay, like deer, elk.
Yeah, it's all going to be taken out by this rifle.
Yeah. Oh, these bears. But then you find something that you can't identify.
Right.
You know it's not a rabbit, but it sounds like a rabbit and you can't see it. And if you're an experienced hunter, I don't know how experienced they were because they got their elk taken. Or I don't even know I'm not a hunter, so I don't know the protocol, but if they're supposedly like professionals and they know what they're doing and they know animal sounds.
They should have the ability to find an animal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of part of the job of being a hunter.
Right. Yeah. Can you imagine being a doctor, not knowing how to do anything in your profession? You're like, I'm actually really good at welding.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor.
It wouldn't make any fucking sense, but yeah, kind of in that same sense, like they couldn't identify it and that's their job. And so a little bit on edge, they end up heading back to their campsite. And that night it happens again. All around them, these animal calls are going, but instead of it just being regular animal calls, it was the sound of rabbits like in pain and dying. Have you ever heard a rabbit squealing?
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's one of the most terrifying sounds.
It's really sad too, actually.
Yeah. You know, maybe I can include like a clip of that towards the end or something.
Yeah, so I mean, you could just throw it in now.
Fair enough. This is an animal, not an animal. This is a rabbit like dying and in pain. That is one of the most disgusting noises I have ever heard. And personally, I would never want to hear that in the forest because something's killing that rabbit or it's caught up in something. And I don't want to be caught up in whatever it has going on.
Right, especially because it's like, let's say it's caught up in a trap. Well, who set those traps? It wasn't us.
Exactly.
You know, then there's something else out there.
Right.
That I don't know. And why are they setting traps so close to camp?
Exactly.
If they were other humans, they would acknowledge our existence and say, hey, I actually set up a trap over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it down. Or say, hey, I set up a trap over there. I will leave it, but please don't bother it. Like, you know, some sort of acknowledgement, even if like it was a trap.
Yeah.
And I knew I was the only one out there, I still would be terrified.
Oh,
yeah.
Like,
why is there a trap out there? Why is this rabbit like squealing?
Yeah.
And if it's not a trap, because my brain immediately, if I was in the position, it would immediately go to something that rabbit's being killed. I wonder what it is.
It's interesting. And so it creeps me out because they're hearing all of these dying rabbit noises just around them. And they actually go out to see if they can find it. absolutely nothing. But the whole time they're out there, the rabbit screams are there and they're getting louder and louder. And, beats the fuck out of me why they just weren't packing up and leaving right then and there.
Yeah, I would have bounced immediately.
Oh, yeah. The minute I heard like creepy animal noises, and I know like, especially like when I go out with my friends and I'm with my friend and I'm the hunter who's supposed to know where everything is, but all of these animal sounds are coming all around me and I can't identify it. Nope. That's it for me. I'm moving out. This is done.
Dude, as soon as my elk
New York
was
City,
like,
here I come.
I go to the city. As soon as my elk was like gone,
Yeah.
I would have just been to my home and like, we're out of here. I'm done.
Yeah.
Not gonna hang. Can't hang. Sorry. You
It's
can stay
over.
if you want, but I'm packing up my shiz and I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Just abandon your friend.
Hell yeah, dude. If you didn't want to come with me, I'd be screw you, bro.
I mean, at that point, he's probably a fucking retard. So get that guy out of your life. Just a quick like side thought too, because I said like pack up, move to New York City. What if there was a movie like The Wendigo in New York and it lived in the subway?
That'd be wild.
That'd be fucking crazy. Anyway, I digress. Back to the main kind of story. So that night, all of those screams are going on. They can't identify it. They end up staying awake and they end up relighting the fire that they had that night, hoping that maybe they could see something. And they couldn't. There is one thing they did say they saw. And it was two like reflective eyes out there that almost looked like deer eyes, but they had that glowing red tint to them. But when they shine like a flashlight over there, they couldn't identify it. And I know we're short for time, so I'm going to just try and summarize the rest of it fairly quickly. What ended up happening is on day 5 of this trip, his friend went out midday just to go take a piss. He went out maybe 15 yards. Not extremely far, but enough where you have enough privacy.
Right.
Doesn't hear back from him for 30 minutes.
Oh wow. He's taking a long dump.
That's what you'd think. And he got a little bit worried for his friend, and so he calls out to him. And he gets the response back that, again, that kind of idea of it sounds close to what it's trying to mimic, but it's not quite it.
Right.
And so he hears something along the lines back, like, Jonathan, come here. I found something. Jonathan. And it sounds like his buddy, but he can tell it's a little bit weird. So he ends up grabbing his gun and he heads out there. And when he gets there to where he heard the noises, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. Except for he hears a branch break. And he can see his friend. This is where it got really spooky. His friend's head is hanging from a tree. Eyelids peeled off. Absolutely just dead staring. All the flesh is still on the face. Eyelids peeled off. And he didn't get close enough to see if it was missing its brain or anything. But you can see its entrails just hanging down from its neck as well. And then 50 yards off, just watching him, he saw this beast, this thing, and he described it just like the Wendigo. Deer skull, razor sharp claws, just hunched over a little bit as if it was in almost a defensive like attack position. I know that's kind of like contra to what it actually is. And as if it's going to like attack him.
Like
it's
pounce.
Exactly.
Like it's getting ready to bolt after him.
Exactly. And he's making eye contact with this thing the entire time and just talking about the dread he was feeling. And so instinctively what he does is he lifts up his rifle and he shoots. The being literally doesn't feel anything at all. He can't even tell if it made contact with it. And it's now charging towards him at unreasonable speed. This guy, he shoots off 2 more shots and the thing's literally like 10 feet away. And he ends up just trying to bolt. He keeps trying and he keeps running. Thing cuts his leg. He's now bleeding. It got behind him and it cuts his legs. And immediately it slices a part off, eats that part, and then sinks its teeth right into his leg, just tearing at the flesh. This guy, luckily, he still had his rifle and he used the butt of it to get it off, and then he fired a shot. He heard the thing cry and run away. And he thought that was the end of it. And so he limps back to his campsite. Whole thing was torn to shit.
Holy shit.
Tent's done. Everything's spread out everywhere. Just ripped.
Just freaking leave.
Tires on your cars slit.
Wow. So he gets to the campsite. He
He's
starts
bleeding
making
a
his
ton.
way back to the car,
Yeah.
and tires are messed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily, he kind of had an idea how to get back. And so eventually, this thing kept fucking with him. He was able to defend himself. He ends up making it back to town, somehow avoiding. This is where I got a little bit suspicious of the story, because he was able to stop enough bleeding to where he was able to finish those last couple of days and make it back to town by hiking out.
Wow.
And he was able to avoid the Wendigo that entire time.
Huh. With a huge gash in his, or a bite, I guess, or a chunk taken out of his leg.
Yeah. So
Sounds a little.
it sounds a little suspicious, but
Sounds a little fishy to me.
yeah, it talks about he made like makeshift crutches or whatever, but like, you know,
Guy like Bear Grylls.
I guess he's an expert that didn't know how to hide his elk. Just kidding.
Dang.
He ends up getting back to town. He reports it to the police. They go back to where the campsite is. There's fucking nothing there.
Nothing.
No equipment, nothing. The only evidence that was left was the campfire. They go out. He takes them to the exact spot to where his friend's head was. Nothing.
Nothing.
There was nothing. There was no evidence at all. They called a search party to try and find this guy's friend. They actually accused him of murdering his friends, but, you know, there's kind of that idea of no body, no crime.
Right.
And so they had to chalk it off as just like a missing person.
Missing person. Wow.
And so that's kind of how the story ended.
Wow. Oh, that's so spooky, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine just that image? I don't know. I'm like painting such a terrifying image. I just hate this. But I'm like envisioning just like a dead body hanging from a tree.
Yeah. Oh, it's
And
just
then-
the head with the entrails.
Just the head. And then just in the distance behind with like, I'm just envisioning like some fog.
Yeah.
This thing just kind of heavy breathing with its arms out.
And this is broad day too.
Oh, that's
Think of
so
the balls on
freaky.
this thing. And it's fast enough to where it was able to avoid being seen. But
Right.
it wanted to be seen in this moment. Which absolutely blows my mind. You know that thing was something.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And this isn't concrete wig, right? It's this guy just described it to be looking like a wig.
Yeah.
But we don't know for sure if this was a wig.
Exactly.
Okay.
He claims it was after doing research, but he can't confirm. And nobody else can confirm because where's the evidence?
Right. All the evidence is gone.
Disappeared. Almost like the FBI forced his friend to kill himself. And they didn't want anybody else to be able to reinvestigate their work. Sounds like Dick fucking Cheney.
It's just going to be a running theme every episode. We have to tie it back to Dick Cheney.
So I'm never letting that man die.
Oh, dude, and maybe it hollows out the skull because that's how Dick Cheney fits his big old fat nose in there.
Probably.
You know, because he's like the penguin. You just
Yeah. Just has to pierce in there, suck the life out of everything.
allegedly.
Yes. Anyways, that about does it for us. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I just think maybe to give you guys, I think we spoke about it our last episode, but we are working on something big. We want to touch base on a couple of things, but I think we should be looking forward to some Epstein soon.
That's the goal.
That is the goal.
Anyway, if anybody has any input or would like to reach out, maybe send their own interpretation of the Wendigo, or if they have any drawings, please send that to shadow.valleypod@thedogenetwork.com. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.